All right, let me start sharing. Gaurav, are you still there on the call? I'll just start the devices, guys, and then start talking so that when we really need them, the devices will be ready. Okay, guys. So this is the topology that we're going to be working on. Let me name it a little bit. This will be the trust part and the untrust part, and this is your DMC. So yes, welcome again. This is day one to your Palo Alto course. My name is Sukesh. We're starting from scratch. I'm going to tell you some basics first, and then we will see them practically and verify the logic on the firewall. So the one basic word that or the basic term that you are supposed to be aware of is stateful packet inspection. Did anybody join today, or it was not part of the demo? Do we have anyone?
Hi, good evening. My name is Suresh. I joined today. I mean, I'm not part of the demo.
Okay, okay. All right, so just for those guys who joined us today, I'm going to brief you guys real quick to what we did last time. We talked about stateful packet inspection. What stateful packet inspection is, it defines the stateful behavior of the firewall. Right, and what that is, when you have users on the inside, or on the trust side of your firewall, then when they're creating a request to go out on internet, this is the request. Now the response to this request is permitted without having any explicit rules, right? Which means you don't require a policy for the response to come back or for the replies to come back to the requester. What will you need? What will be our policy? Our policy will say that allow this communication from trust to untrust, right? So the direction of, by direction, I mean from and to. So this will be from trust and to untrust. So the direction of your policy should be same as the direction of your request. So the request will also flow from trust to untrust. So does your policy will have to be matching, right? If you don't understand stateful packet inspection, just keep it in mind with the direction or with the flow. Now, some basic things about Palo Alto Firewall. It's a zone-based firewall, and there is a default behavior that comes along, right? And that says, hang on a minute, guys. This pen is not behaving properly. Let me just try disconnecting and reconnecting it.
Hi, this is Suresh. I just want to clarify the point. This SPI, what do you mean is like whatever the policies we write for allowing the traffic from the user to internet, by default, it will also allow like the written traffic also, like from the internet to the user, like as you said, from the untrust to trust. By default, it will allow like.
Yes, by default, it will allow that communication, but only the response. If there is a request that flows from the opposite direction, like untrust to trust, then this will require a policy in this direction, right? Which means the firewall should have a policy which allows this communication, allows this request to flow.
Okay. This is stateful inspection, you say, or by default it will allow. By default it will allow.
No, this it's one and the same thing. By default, it won't allow actually.
Allow, okay.
Right? So this is the stateful behavior of the firewall.
Okay.
Right? The default is when the firewall is dealing with multiple zones. So inter-zone communication. This is denied by default, which means two interfaces which are part of two different zones, they will not be allowed to communicate to each other. Right? And what if there are two interfaces which are part of the same zone? That means intra-zone. This communication will be allowed. Right, so that is the default. This is what we are going to verify in today's lab session, and I'll tell you more about the default behavior of the firewalls.
Okay. Can you let me? Can you give me a right to record, please?
No, I cannot on this one.
Yes, I mean to give me permission to record, please.
No, that's what I'm saying. I'll talk to you about this. But on this one, I cannot give you permissions to record. Okay.
Yeah, but after the class, how will you do the labs?
I will explain you everything later, please. Yeah. On this one, you cannot record locally.
All course or is
Yeah,
only
all the classes.
So, okay, Roshan, I think, but it will be on the website, right? Later, it will be uploaded on the site itself.
Yes, it will be there. It's different with 𝐿. 𝐿, I'll talk to you, man. We'll talk about this, okay?
okay.
Yeah, okay. No, because what I'm asking is, in case we miss the class, then how do we ensure that we'll go through the previous classes?
You will get recordings. It's different with the person who raised the query, okay? He's not part of... we don't have to discuss all this, guys. Just forget this conversation happened, okay? You all
Okay.
will get recordings. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry for the distraction. So by default, the firewall will have an IP address of 192.168.1.1. Right? In some cases, it could be set to default just for the lab that you guys may be accessing, right? It could be set on DHCP. So in that case, you will have to you'll have to change the address. You'll have to reconfigure the management IP address before you could access the GUI. Right? So let me just show you how do we do that on the CLI. Right, to check, all you have to do is show interface management. For now, I have configured this to 192.168.1.1, but let me just show you how do you do that. So you go into configure mode and you run the command set device config. Now, anything that relates to management of the device, for example, not just SSS or management IP address, anything that is related to management. Now, what else could it be? For example, SNMP, service routes, I'll talk about those, right? And NTP information, DNS, all that is required for the firewall to function properly. all that is under device config. Right, so first you'll have to change the type to static from dynamic. Right, if you don't see the IP address here, that's what you will have to do. This is what I'm telling you. So when you don't see the IP address here, it means it is expecting to get from DHCP. Then you change it to static and then assign a static IP address. Right, so this is what you will have to do. And after that, you'll have to do a commit. Now, why commit? Right, so the firewall, it has three configuration files, you can say. Right, it has a running config, it has candidate config, and it has the stored config or startup config. We all know what running config is, right? Which is into the system right now and which is active as per which the system is running, right? Or the configuration that is loaded onto the system. Candidate config is the temporary changes that you are making, right? Any modification that we do, all that is being worked upon in candidate configuration file. This is not part of the system, right? So any live changes that you do, they don't take effect immediately, right? You may delete things accidentally, you won't be fired, right? But yes, up to a certain extent, if you delete things, you can recover them. There are ways to do it. I'll tell you how to. But the point is, you have to understand here, there is a file called candidate config, which stores all the temporary changes. And when you do commit, right, it gets a copy, sends a copy to the running configuration and also to the stored configuration. So that's how you save and implement your changes. You can save the changes in the candidate config. It is not only for temporary changes. You can save them here, but they will not be implemented unless you do commit. All right, so hence we have to commit the changes. Now, after this, you go back to your PC, make sure. Now this has two adapters, Ethernet 0, Ethernet 1, and 3, in fact, Ethernet 2. Ethernet 2 is for internet. I have disabled this for now, right? Our internet will be going from the PC all the way towards internet through the firewall. Okay, so I'll tell you some basic policies, how do you get that working and all. So to access the firewall GUI, you'll have to make sure that the management interface here and Ethernet 1 or Ethernet 0, they are in the same subnet, right? And then Ethernet 1/1, you'll have to assign one interface on the PC for that. So Ethernet 1/1 in our topology, let me just put it here. We will do 10.0.0/24 subnet. Right, and for the management, we are running 192.168.1.0. The firewall interfaces, that all will be .1 and the PC will be .10. Here you can see the addresses. It is 192.168.1.10 and 10.0.0.10. So this is Ethernet 0 and Ethernet 1. This thing here in between, it's just a unmanaged switch kind of a thing, right? So that you don't have to worry about how do you map the cables and how do you identify which interface is which in the PC. Right, this is definitely not the first time while I'm logging into this firewall. When you log in for the first time in your lab, you will be prompted to change the default password. Right, the default credential is admin username and admin password, all small. And at this stage here on CLI, when you are right about to change the management settings, right here on the login screen, when you boot your firewall, you will have to wait for at least 5 minutes, right? Why is that? Because the firewall gives you this prompt even before the database is ready, right? The database of the firewall is ready. Even before that, the login appears. So while I try to enter the credentials, even they are correct, it will say incorrect credentials, right? Or invalid credentials. You will not be able to log in. You keep doing it, it will lock itself. And when the database is ready, then also it will not let you log in. So my suggestion is let the firewall boot, get to this prompt, and then give it some time, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes if you have, right? Turn it on, go for a coffee, come back, and then start working on it. Right, now we are on the management PC. This is how the GUI of the PanOS version 10 looks like, right? This is the software version 10 we are running. We are running it on the KVM mode, that is the virtualized mode, right? KVM is an hypervisor, which is making it all possible for us to run these VMs in 𝐊𝐬𝐺. All right, now let me see if there are any changes. They are on the default. Give me a quick minute. I'm going to show you something. Right, let's just reconfigure them. Let me delete these interfaces. Okay, rule-based NAT. All right. All right, so we are back to default. Let's start configuring the firewall. As per our topology, Ethernet 1/1, I'm going to give it 10.0.0.1, and Ethernet 1/2 will take it from the DHCP. So when you're configuring any interface, this is, of course, you can do the commenting, the description of that particular interface you could add here. Let's just say that it is part of the trust zone, right? Just a description. We're not putting it in the zone yet. Then the next thing is interface type. We will finish interface and then I'll run for the charger. So we have interface type, which is TAP, HA, virtual wire, layer 2 and layer 3. So fairly simple. What is TAP is? TAP is basically remote spanning, right? That you would do on switches normally, right? But they have given a privilege on to do it on the firewall. But to be honest, in the production side, you will not have enough free interfaces on the firewall to configure them as TAP, right? So what a TAP interface would do is, let's just say that this is a TAP interface, right? Ethernet 1/3. So what will you do is, on Ethernet 1/3, you will run a PC with Wireshark, right? And you will capture all the details on all the messages that are going through the firewall, right? And analyze them on Wireshark. That's what the purpose of TAP interface is. Okay. Now let me grab the charger. Give me a minute. Let me know if you have any questions to them. Okay, guys, I'm back. Okay, what were we doing? Yeah, the interfaces. So yes, that's TAP interface. Any questions on the TAP interface, guys? Okay, I'll take that as no questions.
Yes, okay. Can you please explain me one more time the TAP interface with the scenario, real example?
Okay, the TAP interface, how it is working is, let's say you have the traffic flowing through the firewall and you want to analyze that traffic and what all data is flowing and you want to capture some of the packets. So what you can do is you can mirror the ports. This is like port mirroring that we do in switches. Right, so you could tell the firewall that anything that is coming on Ethernet 1/2, you want that to be copied on 1/3 as well. And on 1/3, you have a laptop connected, which is running Wireshark. Right, and Wireshark will be capturing and analyzing the packets. That's what tap interface does. Right, but this is more of a useless feature for a firewall, because the firewall anyway is not a very is not a device with enough port density, right? It will have about 6, 8 limited number of ports.
Yep.
So all of these Wireshark and all, you can do that on the inbuilt utility of the firewall. That is to packet capture, TCP dump and all. And still, if you wish to capture all the packets on a particular interface, you can do syslog, you can do NetFlow. You don't need tap for that. Right. The next is HA. I'll explain this when we do HA. Right. Right now, there will be a lot of explanation and you will get confused. So we talk about this when we do HA, that is towards the end of the course. Next is virtual wire. Now, virtual wire means it is like the firewall becomes invisible. Let's say you have a router here, two routers or two communicating hosts, and you have firewall in between. Now this firewall in between, you may want to first put the firewall into the network and then keep configuring it or keep it in the listening mode. In that case, you would create virtual wires. Now what will virtual wires do? Let's say this is 1/1, this is port number 1/2. So they both will be virtually connected, which means the traffic coming on 1/1 going out on 1/2 will technically bypass everything, every policy that the firewall has, and it will act like as if it's just a wire, right? No device, no changes you can do, nothing you can do here. Right? So why is this feature even there? When would you want to use this? Right? That is when you bring out the firewall, simply put it into the network, like just out of the box firewall. When you put it into the network, it has virtual wires already, one set of virtual wire already configured. So it won't affect your traffic, basically. The firewall will not drop any of your traffic, will not capture any of your traffic, and it will be as good as invisible firewall there. Right, so that's the use of virtual wire. In the similar situation, there is a different type of interface, that is layer 2. So as the name suggests, it's the same thing. It's just that now if the interfaces are layer 2, there will not be this virtual connection. The firewall will have visibility to the packets, but only up till layer 2. Right? And then comes the mode which is used and for which the firewall is built, that is layer 3 mode, which means it will have IP addresses and not just layer 3 capabilities, but up till layer 7. Okay, so that's the significance of the interface types. Mostly, if you ask me what will you will use layer 3 and HA.
Hi, I have one question here.
Yeah.
So I understand that virtual wire is not doing anything. It's not traffic is not visible to the firewall at this moment. So I just want to know, like, any use case you can tell me for this, like, is it monitoring? If it's not seeing the traffic, are we collecting any data for monitoring
No,
or
we're
presenting any
not
data?
collecting any data, nothing. It's just that the firewall won't stop your traffic even if you put it straight out of the box into your network.
Okay, so it says something for temporary migration, so we won't impact the.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, but technically, if you see, no team or no administrator would be dumb enough to, try that.
Okay.
Like, it's like, why would you do it? It is a use case as per Palo Alto, but it's not very practical as per me.
Okay, understand.
All right. So that's about interface types. Next you have is NetFlow profile. NetFlow is, do you guys understand NetFlow? It's more of a routing term, nothing to do with firewall. It's like collecting data for, you see all those monitoring tools which project data from the devices onto those big screens. That's NetFlow, SNMP, syslog, all working together there, right? So it is for that. When you create a NetFlow profile, where do you want to send the data, which type of data you want to collect? Do you want to collect all the packets or just one packet every 5 packet or every 10 packets? So these kind of settings you can make here. Next is virtual router. Now, this is very important. Every firewall can do routing as well, right? It will check the security policies. It is allowed, not allowed, decide that, let's say it is allowed. So it will have to route the packet out towards the exit interface or towards the destination. So it should have the routing capabilities, right? So all the routing capabilities to the Palo Alto firewall are given by the virtual router. And the good part is you can have multiple virtual routers in a single firewall, even if it is a VM. Yes, even if it is a VM, I could create a new virtual router. By default, there is this default virtual router created already, and all our interfaces can be part of this and enjoy the routing functionality. Now, when would you create more than one virtual routers? When you need more than one routing domains, right? It is like having VRF in routers. So you create VRF when you require multiple routing functionality from the same device, right? That's exactly what we are doing here. Next is security zone. By default, you won't see them created. Trust, untrust, these were created by me. Right? Right, so Ethernet 1/1, it is supposed to be part of trust. So there you go. And how do you create it? New zone, you simply click here, or you could go to this option here on zones and then come back to interfaces and start configuring it. Yeah. So let me just show you, I didn't give the IP address now. Let's just go to zones first. When you click on add, you simply have to give the name of the zone. That's it. That is the only mandatory setting or configuration that you have to do here throughout this pop-up. What are these things we will do as we progress through the course? We will use these options. Right, so this is part of trust, IPv4. Let's add an IP address here, which is 10.0.0.1/24. This is the best part of the firewall. The firewall understands these decibel notations for the network mask. You don't have to write the 255 format. If you want this to get IP addresses from DHCP, this is the option that you select. All right, now only this much, and I'm gonna do commit, and I will show you a few things on the firewall. And it takes some time to commit and all, right? I'll be right back when this is committing, okay? Back in 2 minutes. All right, so we committed our changes successfully. Let's try to ping the firewall. Right, if I ping 192.168.1.1 from the PC here, will I be able to ping? Guys?
Yes.
No.
I think we have already configured this IP on the device conf. So
Yes, of course. So we are browsing it here since
yeah, we're browsing,
quite some time now.
accessing, yeah.
So this should ping or should not ping?
Not sure if ICMP policy something is there, but generally it should ping because we're able to already
Right.
communicate.
So yes, we are able to ping the management IP address. We did not do anything, any changes or anything. It's the default. Now let's try to ping 10.0.0.1. Should we able to ping? Guys,
No.
take a guess.
No.
Yes, we will be able to ping.
Okay, why no?
No, I said yes.
We didn't add any policies, right?
Policy for what?
For the
Aren't we
zone.
directly connected to the firewall?
Oh,
And
yeah,
we are
we
talking
can.
about pinging the firewall.
Yes, we can.
Right? But you see, unfortunately, we cannot. Now, why is that? Because by default, the firewall will, hold on. Because by default, the firewall will not respond to ICMP, right? On its data interfaces. It did respond by default on the management, but it will not respond on the data interfaces, okay? What if I want that to happen? What if I want SSH to be available on the data interfaces, at least on the inside, not maybe on the outside, but towards inside, you want that? What you will have to do is, there are profiles called interface management profiles, right? There are called network profiles. Under network profile, you have interface management. You simply click on add here, and this will open up. Now, these are the services that I can enable on a particular port wherever this profile will be attached, right? So I can enable SSH, I can enable Telnet, all you can read out here, right? So we can enable ping here. And not just enable or disable, you could also tell the permitted IP addressing range that can talk to these interfaces. So maybe not all what you can do is just the management network, for example, 192.168.1.0 in our case, could reach this. For example, you had some routers here and you had your big network. So the management subnet can be allowed to communicate with the firewall, right? If not all. So that way you can give the address here. Now this is half job done, not full yet. So how do you finish it is you go back to that interface and you attach that profile. So you come back here under advanced and under management profile, you have to select the profile, right? Which is now applicable here. Should we now be able to ping? Yes?
Yes.
No. Why no?
We didn't make commit, right?
Yes, we have to commit because whatever changes we made, they are still sitting in that temporary draft called candidate config, right? We have to commit so that it gets copied to the running config or startup config. So let's just commit. Right, and also if you're working in a production environment, you don't really have to wait for this commit to finish. You can simply close this and keep working on whatever you're doing, right? How do you see the status at the end? You can, on the bottom right corner here, you could click on task and it will be there, right? So it is 70% done now, 98, and we can close this. And you see, it is 100% committed now, and we are now able to communicate with the firewall on the data port, right? So this was how you control the traffic which is going to the firewall, right? Where the firewall is the destination. Now, let's talk about the traffic which is going from the firewall, right? Where the firewall will initiate connections. So let's just try to ping host 10.0.0.10. Right now, all I'm doing is trying to ping from the firewall towards the PC. Should I be able to ping? Yes or no? Guys?
Yes, we will be able to ping.
Keep talking, guys. Otherwise, I will get bored and I may skip few topics. We will not be able to ping.
Okay.
Right? Why is that? What could be the possible reason? We have the interface management profile now. We also have, we are also, able to ping from PC to the firewall. Now it's just the reverse way that we are trying and it is not working.
Because of the stateful
To
behavior.
add the for both sides, we need to add communication, right? To communicate.
No, actually,
What
when
will
we
you
ping,
add on the PC? You don't have interface management
No,
profiles
from
there.
firewall to PC.
But how do you do that?
In the firewall to communicate from a firewall to.
You would require something, but that's not it. It's just the way firewall is trying to communicate. Okay, I'll tell you how. So when you're pinging from the firewall tries to reach every packet with the management interface. So now while you say that try to ping 10.0.0.10, the firewall is trying to reach it via the management interface. Right? And hence it is not able to reach that. What can we do to work? We can force the firewall to send the packets through 1/1.
Yeah, through source.
Right? We could add a source here. Source and IP address of the source or exit interface. Right? And that's how you test.
Sir, I didn't got this point. Can you repeat me once again?
When you try to ping from any device, let's say I am trying to ping on this firewall and try to ping 8.8.8.8, which is here. Right? So what will be the source IP address in the packet?
Firewall management.
No, in general, I'm asking, not about this particular firewall. Let's just say it is a router. Palo Alto started manufacturing routers and it's a router now. So now tell me what will be the source IP.
The client will be the source IP, the client's IP.
The client
Interface
IP.
IP.
You mean this?
190.1.25.
Hold on, guys. Let me talk to him. Yeah.
The source IP will be 192.168.1.25 for firewall IPs.
I don't think so.
Okay,
Source IP.
who was that? Who was that 1.25? How is that 1.25? Can you
I think it's source is 10.0.0.1 and the host will be 10.0.0.10.
guys, you stay with me, please. Everybody. The question is, I am pinging 8.8 from the firewall, which is here, and it is a router. Okay, it's a
We're
router.
getting a lot of disturbance.
It's a noise behind. I don't know
Amit,
what.
could you please mute yourself? Yes, the question is, it's a router, you are pinging 8.8, 8.8 is here towards internet. What will be the source IP address on the packet that goes out?
By
And what will
default,
be the
by
destination
def,
IP?
by default, or is it like by default it will be MGM management and
Guys, can you forget for a second and listen to me what I'm saying? Please, everybody. This is not a firewall. This is a router and you're trying to ping 8.8.8.
Exit IP interface.
Exactly. Thank you. The source IP address will be where the packet will leave that device.
Yes, sir. Yes. Exit interface.
So that is exactly what is happening here. When you try to ping 10.0.0.10 from the firewall, what will be the source IP?
Inside IP interface.
Or what should be the firewall IP? This should be the one, right?
Inside.
Ethernet 1/1, which is 10.0.0.1. But due to the firewall default behavior, it tries to go out through this interface. Right? Any questions? Any confusion?
No.
It's all basics, guys. Don't overthink the logic. Okay, it's
So
all basics.
Sukesh, can you go back to the ping, please? To the command line.
And like I cannot undo whatever I wrote. So what's the question that you have?
No, I will see which IP address you're pinging to. Because you have do the ping, right? I didn't see
The screen,
yes,
you mean?
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Can you go back to topology? Which IP is 10.10.10.0.0.10?
Is this on the PC?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Right, they're both .10. Okay, so this is what we were looking at. We had to manually enter the source, tell the firewall that this is what your exit interface should be to reach the destination. But we could change this. We could change this behavior if it is a problem in a particular network, right? How do you change that? Is all this is called service routes. Anything that goes through management, they call it service routes. That setting can be changed here under devices. Go to setup, and under setup, you go to services. You will open up something like this when you click on setup. Right? It will be here. So you have to go under services. Under services, you have service route configuration. You see, this is what is commanding all that behavior. It says use management interface for all. So any communication that the firewall is trying to initiate will be initiated using the management interface. Let's customize this. And what can we do? All these are services, okay? What you're looking at, LDAP services, mail services. Right, SNMP, syslog, all this, you can change the source interface here. NTP is there, HTTP, DNS, Panorama, pushed updates. When you are, working your working in the network where you'll have Panorama. So you will be doing configuration on Panorama and then push it on the firewall. So which interface will be used for that communication? Okay. So by default, it uses management, but if the network design does not allow you to use management and there are restrictions, so in that case, you could use the data interfaces as well. Right, so that's how it is. You cannot really pinpoint it for just for ping. It's just that, these are services that you need to be aware of, or the service route configuration is what you need to be aware of. Right, so you cannot change that here. It's not that you will not have to type source, you will have to type source. It's just that it's good to be aware of service route configurations. Okay, and now let's go towards the next interface. I'll configure Ethernet 1/2. Interface type layer 3, part of the same virtual router. DHCP now, if you want, you can have the ping profile here, but normally in production also, you will not have ping profile towards the exit interface or the untrust interface, right? Or the interface that is facing towards internet. Now, this is a change that I have not saved yet. I have not committed yet, right? How do I go about it is, let's say this is a mistake that I did. I was not supposed to configure it, right? So what you can simply do is you can go back to this little folder icon here with the drop down. You can either save your changes and commit them later on, right? Or you can revert the changes here. Right, so I could simply click on revert and this 1/2 configuration will be gone. Whatever are the unsaved changes, basically, they will be gone. Right, and there's no more changes pending for saving or committing. You see the commit button is also grayed out now. When you have changes available for commit, that's when it gets highlighted. Right, so layer 3, default. Untrust and DHCP.
And Sukesh, this whatever changes, saved changes cannot be bring back, like can be saved in a draft or something.
So all of this, when you have not clicked anywhere like save and all this is saved, but it will not remain if the firewall reboots.
Okay. Just in case if you have saved the changes,
Yes, that's what.
It'll remain there.
Yeah, let's click on save changes.
And not committing it if you are not committing.
Yeah, we're just saving it, right? I understood your point. Right, and now if you want to revert the changes, right, all the uncommitted changes will be gone. Right, or the last changes.
Yeah, but see, for example, sorry, I'm getting called. Yeah, sorry. For example, if you did if you did some configuration for the interface 1/2, and then you want to, you don't want to commit it, but you just want to save this for later. You might need to, what do you call, activate it or whatever, commit it. So you can save it, and it can be saved in a draft, or once you.
Yeah, that's what I just showed you.
But whenever you revert changes, it is not showing here.
Right. So you don't revert those changes because you want to save them for later, right? So you don't click on revert. Right here, you click on save changes. You come back 1 week later.
Yeah.
Work on the remaining configuration and then push it to the firewall, like commit the changes.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Right, when you want to revert, then only you click on revert changes.
You have to select this save changes and to select that one and have to commit on particular.
Yes, like not the change here. You could keep the selection anywhere, and you could simply click on revert.
Save in a draft or something. Right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Right, so let me just commit this one. All right, so it's about time. Let's leave here. Tomorrow we talk about the traffic which is going through the firewall, which means we'll look at the security policies, interzone, intrazone. How do we create a new one? How do we manage them? Right, so we'll talk dedicatedly about policies. All right, keep practicing this. I would highly recommend that you go along with the course or along with the class sessions, whatever we do. You practice it before you join the next session. I know it's late in India now, but if I were you and if I were in need of learning firewall, I would not sleep right now. I would, do the things immediately into my lab and then go to sleep. Right. So instead of dedicating 1.5 hours, I would dedicate 2 hours.
Sukesh, I have a few questions. Can we discuss it one-to-one for a few minutes?
Yeah, sure. Like, what is it about? Unless you can ask me really personal questions, I'm okay.
No, not personal, regarding the course only. Since I'm not in part of this batch, I just want to discuss with you one-to-one. That's why.
Yeah, that's all right. Go ahead.
Should I?
Yeah, just ask your questions.
Yeah, I just want to know regarding this practice sessions, you will be sharing this topology or?
Right,
or the
this
lab,
will be
lab,
available. Yeah. This will be available to you on this portal, racks.nwkings.com. You will get a credential for this and you get the link. Once you do your payments and all, the admin team will share the details, how do you access and all.
Okay. And this will be available in case, I'm logging in from UAE, and the time zone will be a little bit slightly different there, so that this labs will be anytime I can access it, or is there any restriction?
You can access them 24/7.
Okay. I just need not to, once this credential is, I have to use this link and use my credentials to log in.
Yes.
And for the, in case if you are finding any difficulties in the lab sessions, we get any support from the backend team, like for our.
If it is related to, administration, like your